Hey folks, everything new under the sun. Welcome to another Sunday edition of Enoch, going through the book of Enoch, and I'm just kind of covering what I find interesting in it. And of course, as I always state, this is the ancient book of Enoch, and it is by Ken Johnson. Now you can buy this ebook. This is just a Kindle Cloud Reader, basically ebook. Ken Johnson. And he put this together, has some notes and footnotes and that sort of thing. And it goes through the story of Enoch. Obviously, Enoch was a pre-flood person who was maybe the first to experience rapture. He was taken away. And this book provides a lot of interesting background about how things potentially were prior to the flood. Gives us insight into the Nephilim. All sorts of cool stuff. So, we just did, the last episode was End Time Signs. The first dream is about the flood. Now I'm going to skip over this, but yeah, this dream is about the flood, and you know, I don't find anything super interesting there. But what I find more interesting is the second dream here, because this gets into the creation of the Nephilim, the rapture of Enoch, and it gets into the Nephilim Civil War, which is kind of interesting. And then it actually finishes up with more flood stuff. So let's have a look at it. I think this is kind of an interesting dream part here, and we're getting near the end of the book. So let's see. Let's move this picture because my face is going to be in a different location here when I go to render this thing. Need a bigger screen because right now I see that on the image. But anyways. Alright, second dream starting in chapter 85. Bring this mic closer to me. I think it's recording. Alright. Well, that's not what I wanted to do. Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. After this I saw another dream, which I will now reveal to you. My son, listen carefully to my second dream that I had before I married your mother, Edna. Interesting. It's like a letter to his son, basically. That's kind of neat. I dreamed a white bull, Adam, in brackets there, came up out of the earth, and after it came up a heifer, Eve. And along with the heifer came up a black bull, Cain, and a red bull, Abel. The black bull gored the red bull and chased him away to the point I could no longer see the red bull. Then the black bull grew, and the heifer went with him. When Cain was banished to the land of Nod, he took one of his sisters, Awan, for a wife. See Jubilees 4:9 and Josephus 1:2:1. So that's Ken Johnson's comment. So that's interesting. Book of Jubilees would obviously be something very interesting to go through. So then the black bull grew up, and the heifer went with him, and he produced many oxen which resembled him and followed him. So many, kids, offspring, civilization, basically a community. Then the cow left the first bull to find the red one, but she couldn't find him and lamented greatly, but kept looking for him. I looked till the first bull came to her and quieted her, and from that time onward she cried no more. After that she bore another white bull, Seth, and after him she bore many bulls and black cows. The white bull then grew and became a great white bull, and he produced many white bulls, and they resembled him. They began to beget many white bulls, which resembled them one after another. And so they're being fruitful and multiplying on the face of the earth, which is what God intended. So now we get into chapter 86, the creation of the Nephilim. Then I saw a star, Azazel, fall from heaven, and it arose and ate and pastured among the cows. So Nephilim, an angel, fallen angel, comes down to earth and eats with and lives with, pastures with, walks around, wanders with the humans. After that I saw large cows, Sethites, and black cows, Canaanites. And they changed their stalls, pastures, and their young began to cry against each other. I looked towards heaven, and behold, I saw many stars descend from heaven. And I interpret that to be large cows, the giants that the angels of men. So the angels that came down and slept the women of men created the giant race, and that became the Sethites, and basically the Canaanite, the precursors of the Canaanite race or group of people there. So, and behold, I saw many stars descend from heaven. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of that great day. Jude 1:6. So they have special punishment, those angels. And bowed down to the first star, and they became bulls among the cattle, and pastured among them. Then they let out their sexual organs, like horses do, and mounted and impregnated cows. And the cows bore elephants, camels, and asses. So they're bearing things that they're not normally meant to bear, obviously. 3 different clans of Nephilim. They begat sons, the Nephilim, and they were all unlike, and they devoured one another, and the giants slew the Nephil. So they were all fighting, all these inhuman, mixture races were all fighting each other, killing each other, basically. And Nephil slew Elio, and Elio mankind, and one man another, Jubilees 7:22. So there's lots of fighting between men because of the angels that came down and really messed up the gene code, basically. All the cattle feared them. All the people of the earth feared the Nephilim. They were gods. They were the Greek gods, effectively. And began to bite with their teeth and to devour and to gore with their horns. They began to devour those cattle, and behold, all the children of the earth began to tremble and quake before them, and to flee from them. 87. Then, as they were goring one another, the earth began to cry aloud. And I think this is where God recognized, or he said that, this is it. The world's too messed up. We need to do something about this. And I looked up to heaven and saw beings who looked like white men coming down from heaven. The first one, Michael, went forth from that heaven. Then the other 3 archangels followed him. The last 3 came out and took me by hand to a high tower far away from the children of the earth, Enoch's rapture. One told me, remain here until you see everything that happens to all the elephants, camels, asses, all the offspring of the Nephilim, the angels breeding with humans, and the stars and the cattle. All right, Nephilim Civil War. And, they're already killing each other. There's already civil war. So let's see what it says here. Then one of those first 4, Raphael, seized the first star which had fallen from heaven, Azazel, and bound it hand and foot and cast it into the abyss. So this is pointing to Enoch 10 there. Now the abyss was narrow, deep, horrible, and dark. One of the 4, Gabriel, drew a sword and gave it to those elephants, camels, and asses. Then they began to smite each other. So they got weapons, and they just started killing each other. And the whole earth shook because of them. The Nephilim Civil War, Jubilees 7:22. So that would be an interesting thing to look at. Then one of the first 4, Michael, gathered all the great stars whose sexual organs portrayed like horses, and bound them all hand and foot, and cast them into an abyss of the earth. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment. 2 Peter 2:4. And the imagery, the graphic nature of it, I think, maybe speaks to how much lust and sin they had in their hearts to sleep with the daughters of man, and how much sin they had in them to just mess up God's original plan for creation. So chapter 89. One of those 4 went to that white bull, Noah, and instructed him in a secret. While it was terrified, he was born a bull, but became a man, and built a great vessel and dwelt in it. 3 bulls, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, dwelt with him. And we know Japheth, if you watch my other video about where is North Korea in Bible prophecy, Japheth is actually one of the forefathers of the people group that make up North Koreans and the other, the Koreans in general there. Dwelt with him in that vessel which covered them. I looked up to heaven and saw a high roof with 7 water torrents. A great amount of water flowed through those torrents into an enclosure. As I was watching, fountains were opened on the surface of that great enclosure, and that water began to swell and rise upon the surface, and I watched that enclosure till all of its surface was covered with water. The water, darkness, and mist kept increasing. The water rose above the height of that enclosure, and streamed over all sides and poured upon the whole earth. All the cattle gathered together, but eventually they were all swallowed up and perished in that water. So it's obviously talking about the humans. They were all gathered together at the end, I guess maybe on a high hill, and the waters eventually overtook them and killed them all, basically. Oops. But the vessel floated upon the water while all the cattle, elephant, camels, asses, so all the offspring, all the things that weren't cattle, basically, died. So the humans, plus all the things that came out of all the mighty men, the giants, the Nephilim creatures that came out of them, were all killed. Now, there was giants after the flood as well, so that's interesting. But the suggestion is, since Noah was pure in his days, and that probably references his gene code, that maybe one of his sons brought some sin across, or maybe the angels came back down after. But it does say, the Bible does say that there was giants after those days. With all the animals sank to the bottom, so I could no longer see them. This is on Enoch seeing the vision, basically, and it could no longer see the humans. They were not able to escape, but perished into the depths. None of the pre-flood humans or Nephilim survived the flood. And I would agree with that. That's Ken Johnson's comment. I would agree with that. Then the water torrents were removed from that high roof, and the chasms of the earth were leveled up, and other abysses were opened. Then the water began to run down into the abysses till the earth became visible. And this is what created the Grand Canyon. All the water ran off the continents, and you can see big washout in the was it the Gulf Coast or whatever in the U.S. You can see a big washout from the Grand Canyon, all the debris that came off when the flood subsided, basically. Then the water began to run down into the abysses until the earth became visible, and that vessel settled on the earth, on the mountains of Ararat, mountains plural of Ararat. And the darkness retired, and light appeared. But that white bull Noah, which had become a man, came out of the vessel, and the 3 bulls with him. And one of those 3 was white, Shem, like the bull Noah. And one of them was red, Japheth, as blood. And one black, Ham. So that's interesting. Enoch is suggesting that the skin pigments, the color of the races, were introduced here. So Japheth being red and being kind of more that Asian, Chinese, Korean skin color, and Ham being the father like of the Ethiopians, the darker skin. And we know that if you breed animals in certain ways, then their attributes are continued on and even increased in subsequent generations. So is that how we got all the different skin colors? It was just because of the tint, if you want to say it that way, of kind of the original 3 that effectively made the various races. So that could be interesting thoughts there. Let's see what Ken Johnson says. Shem was godly and Ham turned evil. Now some people use that to suggest that black people are evil, and they are absolutely not. Ham himself may not have followed God, but it doesn't. Color is just a pigment of the skin. Underneath the skin, we're all exactly the same. Christ died for all. And Christ, Jesus, when he died 2,000 years ago, he was probably middle brown sort of a color, a typical Middle Eastern color there. So there's no, no perfect race, as who was a Hitler, would have said. There's no perfect race like white, Caucasian, blue-eyed, or whatever. God created us all equal. We're all equal. And Christ died for all. And no, the color of your skin doesn't make you evil or not evil. And that white bull Noah departed from them. So they split up. So what does Ken John say? Legend says Noah retired to the island of Crete and experimented with various ship designs. At his death, he was taken back and buried by the ark. Interesting. And maybe that's where the industry of shipbuilding took off. Interesting comment there. They began to bring forth beasts of the field and birds, so that there arose different species, Gentile nations. It's referring to the lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boars, foxes, squirrels, swine, falcons, vultures, kites, eagles, and ravens, and among them was born a white bull, Abraham. So lots of different people were born. Big ones, small ones, fat ones, skinny ones, etc. Different skin colors, etc. None of which makes anybody better or worse. Just different. There's a huge variety in the gene pool, and so that's what came out of their procreation and their filling up of the earth with offspring, basically. All right, we will finish this one today with this last chapter here. Again, speaking to the head of the nations, where the nations originated from, and again, similar to what I showed with the where's North Korean Bible prophecy, where do they come from as a people group? This I think speaks to some of that. Then began to bite one another, but that white bull Abraham, which was born among them, begat a wild ass Ishmael, and a white bull Isaac with it, and the wild asses, Arab nations, multiplied. And obviously, the conjecture, the suggestion is that all the Arab nations came out of Ishmael, and the wild ass effectively describes kind of how they are as a people, as a whole. Maybe they're more rash and that sort of thing. I mean, just Google that. I'm not even going to try and explain that, but if you look at the temperament of the peoples and the people that descended from Ishmael, I think you'll get an understanding, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense. I'm not saying it's better or worse. It is what it is. But there's definitely different temperaments between Ishmael and Isaac. But that bull, which was born from him, begat a black wild boar, Esau, and a white sheep, Jacob, Israel. And the former begat many boars, but that sheep begat 12 sheep. And so starting to speak with the nation of Israel, 12 tribes of Israel. When those 12 sheep had grown, they gave up one of them to the asses, Ishmaelite slave traders. Talking about Joseph here, yes, Joseph and the coat of many colors and all that whole story. So you can see, you can see a ton of parallels here with Scripture. It's pretty neat. And those asses again gave up that sheep, Joseph, to the wolves. Let's see what Ken says here. Aramaic has bears instead of wolves. Okay, that's interesting. Egyptians, wolves, Egyptians. So Egyptians being the wolves or the bears there. And that sheep grew up among the wolves, and the Lord brought the 11 sheep to live with it. In years of famine, all the brothers of Joseph came and eventually fed under Joseph, who was second or third highest in command in Egypt, managing the 7 years of prosperity, plenty, and the 7 years of famine, basically. To live with it, to pasture with it among the wolves. Among the Gentile people, the Egyptians, basically. And they multiplied and became many flocks of sheep. The wolves began to fear them because there were so many of them. They were procreating. Egyptians thought they would take over. And they oppressed them until they killed their little ones, and they cast their young into the great river of water, Nile River. But those sheep began to cry aloud on account of their little ones, and to complain unto the Lord. So you can see the story of Moses coming up here, being cast into the river in the basket, etc. So pretty interesting parallels and what seems like very good background information, detail to the Scripture. Pre-flood and even post-flood here, obviously with the fathers of the nations, if you will, the sons of Noah. And the skin colors, even, it's just something to think about. And a pretty interesting thing, pretty interesting stuff. Chuck Missler has a lot of commentary on that sort of thing. The beginnings of the nations, the skin colors, all these sorts of things. And I'm sure there's others that I can't think of right now, but Yeah, it's all very interesting stuff. I will leave it there for today, guys. I hope you found that interesting. I think going over little sections at a time is almost better because you can kind of digest a piece at a time and pick out the stuff that's interesting to you. So I definitely suggest you go check it out and go research it. It's pretty cool stuff. So I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. I've got the whole series. Go back and watch the whole playlist if you want. And we'll see you guys in the next video.